Jimin's devastating confession rips through Jungkook's soul, unraveling secrets, betrayal, and a promise that was never meant to be broken. "You promised me first." The words cut through the rain-soaked silence like a blade, trembling on Jimin's lips as his fists clenched at his sides. The back alley behind the recording studio reeked of wet asphalt and betrayal, the neon signs flickering like dying stars above them. Jungkook didn't speak. He couldn't, not when Jimin's eyes were burning with a pain that no apology could wash away. The echo of those 5 words vibrated inside Jungkook's chest louder than the storm above. A promise, a vow made 2 years ago under very different skis, whispered during sleepless nights and sealed with desperate hands. And now it was broken. Jimin stepped back, his breath shaky, the warmth that used to live in his voice now turned brittle. "Say something." Jungkook opened his mouth, but all that came out was the sound of guilt. He hadn't meant to let it go this far, but lies had a way of snowballing, of coating the truth until it became unrecognizable even to himself. "I didn't know how to tell you," Jungkook finally said, but even to his own ears it sounded weak. "I thought I was protecting you." Jimin's laugh was short and sharp like glass. "Protecting me, from what, Jungkook, the truth or your own shame?" Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed, low, mournful, as if the city itself grieved with them. A flash of lightning illuminated Jimin's tear-streaked face. He wasn't crying out of weakness. Jungkook realized it was fury, pain forged into steel, and underneath it all, a wound that had been festering long before tonight. "You knew how much this meant to me," Jimin said, stepping closer again, his voice no longer trembling. "I trusted you. I chose you before the fame, before all of this." Jungkook's voice cracked. "So did I." "Then why did you leave me behind?" Silence wrapped around them like a noose. Jungkook remembered it all too vividly. The night he signed that solo contract without telling Jimin, the meetings held in secret, the distance that grew every time he chose ambition over loyalty. He told himself it was temporary, just until things stabilized. But stability never came. Only accolades, spotlights, empty rooms with golden trophies that meant nothing when Jimin wasn't there to share them. He had buried the guilt beneath rehearsals and deadlines, but now it was clawing its way back with a vengeance. "I didn't leave you," Jungkook whispered. Jimin's stare hardened. "You just walked so far ahead you forgot to look back." Rain began to fall harder, blurring the world around them, but neither of them moved. There was something sacred about the space between them now, like a battlefield once soaked in blood, now consecrated by grief. "I needed you," Jimin said, voice low. "Not as a bandmate, not as a business partner, as someone who once looked me in the eye and said, 'You first always.'" Jungkook closed his eyes. The memory rushed back. Jimin curled up on the cold studio floor after a panic attack, Jungkook holding his shaking hands, whispering promises into his ear. Back then, Jungkook had meant it with every breath. Now all he had were fragments of that sincerity, scattered by fame and fear. "I still love you," Jungkook said. It slipped out before he could stop it. The storm answered before Jimin could. A sudden clap of thunder split the sky, followed by a deafening crash, metal against metal. Screams, shouts, just around the corner chaos erupted. A van skidded across the intersection and slammed into the side of a black car. Jimin flinched. Jungkook turned instinctively. But Jimin didn't move. His eyes were still locked on Jungkook, even as sirens blared and the scent of gasoline flooded the air. "Even if you do," Jimin said, voice icy, "it doesn't change what you did." Jungkook felt a shift then, something deeper than heartbreak, something final. He wanted to grab Jimin's hand, to plead for a second chance to rewind time, but his feet were frozen to the pavement, his heart pounding against the cage of his ribs. The moment was slipping through his fingers, and Jimin was already turning away. "Don't walk away from me, Jimin." Jungkook's voice cracked, louder than the rain, rower than the thunder. His hand reached out, but Jimin didn't stop. The alley was long, shadows twisting like knives, and Jimin's back looked smaller the farther he went, but his silence carried the weight of 1,000 accusations. "Please," Jungkook tried again, stepping into the downpour, his sneakers splashing through puddles. "If you leave now, you'll never hear the truth." Jimin froze. Slowly his shoulders stiffened, his breath visible in the cold night air. He turned his head just enough for Jungkook to see the fury and heartbreak mixed in his eyes. "The truth?" Jimin's voice was sharp, edged with disbelief. "You mean the truth you've been hiding for months? the truth that every stranger on the internet seemed to know before I did. Jungkook's stomach twisted. He hadn't expected Jimin to find out this way, not from headlines or whispered rumors in hallways. It wasn't supposed to. Don't, Jimin cut him off, stepping closer again, his soaked hoodie clinging to his frame. His fists trembled. Don't you dare stand there and act like you didn't choose this. You signed those papers, Jungkook. You smiled in front of those cameras. You let them use us, and you didn't think for 1 second about the person who stood next to you when no one else cared. Jungkook's throat went dry. He wanted to scream that he had thought of Jimin every damn day, but what came out was a whisper. I thought I was protecting us. If I took it alone, you wouldn't have to carry the weight. Jimin laughed bitterly, his voice breaking in the middle. You idiot, you think I needed protecting, I needed honesty. I needed you to fight for me, not shield me like some fragile secret you were ashamed of. His hand shot up, shoving Jungkook's chest with the kind of force that came from months of bottled rage. Jungkook stumbled back, water splashing up from the ground. You promised me first, Jimin repeated, his tone softer this time, almost like a plea. His eyes glistened, not from the rain but from the storm inside him. When everyone else left, when I thought I had no one, you were there, and you told me I'd always come first. Do you even remember that night? The memory struck Jungkook like lightning. The dim rehearsal room, Jimin's trembling hands, the smell of coffee gone cold on the table. Jimin's voice had been weak then, asking, will you stay? And Jungkook had answered without hesitation, you first, always. That vow had been the anchor for both of them in their darkest moments. And now he had shattered it. I remember, Jungkook admitted, his voice raw. I remember every word. That's why this is killing me, Jimin. I never stopped. Don't say you never stopped loving me. Jimin's tone was sharp again, slicing through Jungkook's confession. Love without loyalty is just another lie. The street around them seemed to still, the rain muffling, the city holding its breath. Then suddenly the chaos from the earlier crash bled into their confrontation. Paramedics rushed past, shouting orders, the smell of burning rubber hanging heavy in the air. Someone yelled for help and Jungkook instinctively turned, but Jimin's voice pulled him back. You want to help them? Jimin asked, eyes narrowing. Funny, you couldn't even help the one person who needed you most. Don't twist this, Jungkook snapped, frustration boiling over. Everything I did because I thought it would secure a future for both of us. You think I wanted the spotlight alone? You think I enjoyed standing there without you? His voice cracked on the last word. It was empty. Every stage, every award, all of it empty without you. For a second, Jimin's expression faltered, the mask slipping, but he caught himself, his jaw tightening. Then why didn't you say no? Why didn't you fight harder? Because deep down you wanted it. You wanted the fame, the glory, the chance to be untouchable, and you wanted it without me. Jungkook's eyes widened. That's not true. Jimin stepped closer, so close Jungkook could see the droplets sliding down his lashes, the fury etched into every line of his face. Then prove it. The challenge hung heavy between them, louder than sirens, sharper than thunder. Jungkook's pulse thundered in his ears. Prove it. But how? Words had failed him. Promises had betrayed him. I'll do anything, Jungkook said finally, desperation lacing his tone. Just tell me how to fix this. Jimin's lips trembled, but his gaze stayed hard. You can't fix what's already broken. And then, without warning, a shout rang out from the crash site. It's going to explode, someone screamed. The sharp smell of gasoline intensified and flames licked the underside of the van. Instinct overtook them both. Jimin whipped his head toward the fire, Jungkook already sprinting forward. For a split second their eyes met, panic, fear, but also the echo of something deeper, something they hadn't lost completely. Jungkook, Jimin yelled as Jungkook charged toward the wreckage. But Jungkook didn't stop. He couldn't, not when lives were on the line. He threw himself into the smoke, the heat burning his lungs, the world around him roaring in chaos. Behind him, Jimin's voice carried through the storm. Not anger this time, not accusation, just raw, unfiltered terror. Don't you dare leave me again. The explosion didn't come all at once. It was a low, guttural roar, a pregnant silence followed by a violent surge of flame that lit up the night like hell had clawed its way to the surface. The van went up with a deafening blast, throwing Jungkook backward into the pavement, his body crashing into a parked car with a sickening thud. Jimin screamed his name. He didn't even remember moving. 1 second he was frozen on the sidewalk, and the next he was on his knees beside Jungkook, hands trembling as he reached out to touch his bruised, soot-covered face. Jungkook, look at me. Jungkook groaned, eyes fluttering open, unfocused. Did it go up? You idiot, Jimin's voice cracked, tears mixing with ash and rain. You absolute selfish idiot. He pressed a hand to Jungkook's chest as if checking for something solid, something real. Why do you always run into danger like you're trying to disappear in it? Jungkook coughed, blood staining the corner of his lip. Because I don't know how to stand still anymore. They stared at each other for a heartbeat longer, the sound of sirens and shouting fading into white noise. Paramedics rushed over, but Jimin didn't let them push him aside. He stayed beside Jungkook as they lifted him onto the stretcher, gripping his hand like a lifeline. At the hospital, the chaos dimmed. Jungkook was stable. Bruised ribs, concussion, smoke inhalation. Nothing life-threatening but enough to leave Jimin packing the sterile hallway, fists clenched and stomach twisted into knots. He hadn't meant for the night to end like this. But part of him had known it would. Everything with Jungkook always ended in fire. The nurse finally told him he could go in. Jungkook was sitting up in bed, bandaged and pale, eyes dark with exhaustion but alert. Hey, he croaked. Jimin stepped inside, not sitting. You almost died. I didn't. That's not the point. Jungkook sighed, wincing. Then what is? Jimin stared at him, eyes flickering with something unreadable. Then, do you even want to live anymore? The question sucked all the air out of the room. What kind of question is that? An honest one, Jimin snapped. Because you keep acting like you don't, like nothing matters, like I don't matter. You do, Jungkook said, the words sharp, immediate. God, you do. Then why do you keep hurting me? Jimin's voice trembled now, anger giving way to something more fragile. Why do you keep choosing everything else over us? I was there, Jungkook, every damn step. I held your hand when no one else did. I picked you up when you couldn't stand. And the moment you had a chance to fly, you flew alone. Jungkook looked away. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Jimin moved closer, his expression contorted with grief. Do you even know what it felt like? To find out from your manager that you'd gone solo, to see you standing on that stage with the same words you once said to me, nothing without my team, except I wasn't part of that team anymore. I wanted to bring you in, Jungkook said, but they said it was better if I. They, Jimin scoffed, you let them make your decisions now. I let them protect me, from myself, from this. From me. Silence. Jimin's hands were shaking again. You're such a coward. Jungkook looked up, pain etched deep into his face. Do you know what it's like to wake up and wonder if the people who love you still would, if they saw who you really are? Jimin blinked. I do actually. They locked eyes, and something dangerous passed between them. I've been keeping a secret, Jungkook whispered. Jimin's breath caught. What kind of secret? Jungkook hesitated, his jaw clenched. Then, I didn't just go solo, I didn't just sign the contract without you, I gave them something else. What? They said they wanted authenticity, a real story, so I gave them ours. Jimin took a step back. What the hell are you talking about? The songs, the interviews, the lyrics, they're all about you. A beat of silence, then two. Jimin's face twisted in disbelief. You told the world about us. I never said your name. You didn't have to. Jimin's voice cracked like a whip, loud enough to make a nurse poke her head in. Jungkook waved her off. You sold our story, Jimin whispered, horrified. I tried to immortalize it, Jungkook said, softer. To give it meaning. I thought if people heard it, if they felt it, then maybe it wouldn't feel like I lost you completely. Jimin's voice dropped into a deadly whisper. You didn't just lose me, you used me. I didn't mean to. You turned our pain into profit. I wanted to honor what we had. We're not dead, Jungkook, Jimin yelled. You don't get to grieve me while I'm still standing right in front of you. The room went still again. Jungkook looked like he was breaking. His lips trembled and his voice came out shattered. I didn't know how else to say sorry. Jimin's hands slowly dropped to his sides. Then let me say it for you. And with that he turned and walked out. This time Jungkook didn't chase him. Because maybe Jimin was right. Maybe love without loyalty was just another lie. You let them rewrite me. Jimin's voice trembled with fury as he slammed the dressing room door behind him, the echo shattering the fragile quiet. Jungkook turned from the mirror, startled. His makeup artist froze mid-swipe, sensing the storm in the air, and wisely slipped out, leaving the two alone. The walls of the room seemed to close in, the soft hum of the arena outside only heightening the tension within. Jimin stood there, chest heaving, soaked in the sweat of his own concert, hair clinging to his temples, fists clenched so tight they trembled. He wasn't supposed to be here. Jungkook's solo showcase was tonight. They hadn't spoken in weeks, not since the hospital. "What are you talking about?" Jungkook asked cautiously, pushing himself off the chair, his voice low, worn. Jimin reached into his jacket and threw a crumpled magazine onto the vanity. Page 12. Jungkook unfolded the cover, his face was on it. The headline, "The Real Jungkook, Untold Stories of Pain, Passion and the Love That Nearly Destroyed Him." His throat dried, he opened to page 12. There it was, his words, or rather words edited and twisted into something unrecognizable. "She was the light in my darkness," the quote read, "but in the end she wanted a part of me I couldn't give." Jimin's voice cracked. You let them turn me into a fucking pronoun, a ghost in a pretty story, a girl. Was it not enough that you erased me from your future, you had to rewrite me in your past too?" "I didn't approve that article," Jungkook said, stepping closer. "They pulled that from our old lyrics, from out-of-context interviews. I didn't know." "You didn't stop them either," Jimin shouted, face contorted with betrayal. "You didn't call the editor, you didn't demand a retraction, you didn't fight for the truth, you just let them sterilize it, like what we had was a dirty secret that had to be sanitized for public consumption." "I didn't want to out you." "Oh, don't twist this into protection again," Jimin snapped, eyes blazing. "This isn't about closets or careers, this is about respect. You let the world believe a lie because it was more convenient for your image." "I didn't want to lose everything I built." "And I didn't want to lose you," Jimin roared, stepping forward now, their chests nearly touching. "But you made your choice, you chose legacy, you chose fans, you chose managers, producers, brands. You chose to let everyone think your muse was some tragic girl instead of the man who loved you so much he gave up his pride for your silence." Jungkook's face twisted with guilt. It wasn't about pride, it was about fear. "No," Jimin whispered, voice like glass cracking. "It was about shame." Those words hit harder than the explosion ever had. Jungkook staggered back, visibly wounded. "You think I was ashamed of you?" "I think you were ashamed of us," Jimin said, "because we didn't fit the story they wanted you to tell, because the truth wasn't brand safe." "I'm not the only one who hid," Jungkook snapped suddenly, the pain turning to anger. "You think I didn't notice? The way you shut down in interviews when they brought up relationships, the way you edited our photos, cropped me out of your posts." Jimin recoiled. "You think I was hiding you, I was protecting you, I knew what you were risking. I never wanted to be the reason the world turned on you." "But I never asked for that," Jungkook said, stepping forward again. "I would have stood by you if you just asked. If you told me you were scared, I would have." "Don't you dare put this on me," Jimin shoved him back, his voice trembling with rage. "You went behind my back, you signed that contract, you told our story without me, and now I'm just some she in a footnote." Jungkook's voice cracked. "I didn't know how to fix it." "You still don't." Jimin turned to go, but Jungkook's hand caught his wrist. "Wait, please." Jimin froze, the touch sent a shiver up his spine, familiar, intimate, painful. "I miss you," Jungkook whispered. "I don't care," Jimin said, ripping his arm free. "Missing me doesn't change what you did." "But I still love you." Jimin looked at him, eyes softening for just a second, then hardening again like steel. "Then let me burn in peace." He turned and walked out. Jungkook stood there trembling, not from fear, from the weight of everything unsaid, from the knowledge that this time Jimin wouldn't come back, not unless he destroyed the version of himself the world adored. He looked in the mirror, the stage lights glittered behind him, cheers echoed down the hallway, his name chanted like a god's. But the man in the mirror looked like a ghost, and his reflection whispered only one thing back to him. "You promised me first." The crowd was still chanting his name when Jungkook stepped out onto the stage, but the applause sounded hollow in his ears. The lights were too bright, the screams too loud, nothing drowned out the sound of Jimin's words, still echoing in his skull like a siren. "Then let me burn in peace." Every note felt like a betrayal. Every lyric tasted like ash. He moved through the motions, hit the cues, sang the verses, smiled when the cameras demanded it, but his chest was caving in with every breath. By the time he reached the final song, the one that had made headlines, the one they all sang with him like they understood, he couldn't do it. He stopped, right there in the middle of the stadium, as tens of thousands of fans held their lightsticks up like stars. He lowered the mic and stepped away from the center of the stage. The band faltered, the crowd quieted. He raised the mic to his lips, voice raw and shaking. "I can't sing this tonight." Gasps rippled through the venue. "I can't keep pretending this song is just a story." His voice cracked. "Because it's not, it's a confession. It's about someone I hurt, someone I loved more than anything and lost." Backstage, his manager swore into his headset, barking at staff to cut the feed. But it was too late. The live stream was already viral. Jungkook looked directly into the camera. "I know what I did. I sold our truth for convenience. I rewrote him out of my story. I made him anonymous for the sake of my own comfort, and I regret it, every second of it." Fans were whispering now, phones were up, faces frozen. "This isn't a PR stunt. This isn't an album teaser. This is me finally saying what I was too much of a coward to say." He paused, heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. "His name is Park Jimin." The silence that followed was unbearable. For a moment time stood still. Then slowly people began to clap, a few at first, then more, then thousands. Screams turned into sobs, cheers into cries. Jungkook didn't know if it was support or chaos or both, but he didn't care. He walked off stage, ignoring every panicked staff member trying to stop him. He ripped the earpiece out, unzipped the jacket, and moved through the hallway with one mission burning in his veins. "Find Jimin." He called no answer, texted nothing. He went to Jimin's apartment, empty. He tried their old rehearsal studio, locked. It was past midnight when he finally found him, sitting on the rooftop of their old building, the one where they used to sneak beers after practice and dream about stages, just like the one Jungkook had walked away from. Jimin was sitting with his back to the door, a cigarette between his fingers, city lights flickering around him like ghosts. "You shouldn't be here," Jimin said without turning. "I know. You have a career to protect. I threw it away about an hour ago." That made Jimin finally look at him. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were glassy. "I said your name," Jungkook admitted, stepping closer. "On stage, on camera." "You what?" "I told them the truth, about the song, about us." Jimin stared at him in disbelief. "Why now?" "Because I realized the truth deserves more than a melody. You were never just a song, Jimin." A long silence passed between them. The wind carried the distant sounds of traffic, the low hum of city life moving on without them. "You're insane," Jimin said quietly. "I know. You just gave them everything." "No, I finally gave you something." Jimin stood, tossing the cigarette over the edge. "You think a confession fixes this?" "No," Jungkook said, "but it's a start." Jimin shook his head. "You said I was a mistake you immortalized in lyrics. You let the world believe I was someone else. Do you know how that feels?" "Like I erased you," Jungkook said. "And I did. I erased you because I was scared they'd reject me for loving you. But the truth is I was never whole without you. Not in the songs, not in the spotlight, not even in the silence." Jimin's jaw clenched, his eyes flickering with something between anger and heartbreak. "I don't want to be your apology, Jungkook." "You're not," Jungkook said, stepping closer. "You're the only thing that ever made me honest." Jimin didn't speak. He looked out over the city, blinking hard. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "They're going to tear you apart." "Let them," Jungkook said. "I'd rather be torn apart for loving you than praised for lying." Jimin's breath caught. He looked down, fists trembling. "You were always the brave one," Jungkook added. Jimin looked up sharply. "No, I was just the one who didn't have the luxury of hiding." Jungkook nodded, shame heavy in his eyes. "Then let me stand with you now, out here in the open." "You can't just flip a switch and be forgiven," Jimin said, his voice cracking. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Jungkook whispered. "I'm asking for a chance." Jimin looked at him for a long, agonizing moment. Then you broke my heart, Jungkook. I know. I don't trust you. I'll earn it back. You might never. I'll still try. Jimin exhaled, shaking his head. You're unbelievable. Jungkook offered a small, fragile smile. So are you. The city pulsed around them. Above, the stars were drowned by light pollution. But here on this rooftop, something real flickered in the dark, fragile, broken, but alive. Jimin didn't say yes. But he didn't walk away either. You really think you can just show up after all that, and expect me to hold your hand again? Jimin's words hung between them, brittle and sharp in the morning air. The rooftop was quiet now, washed in soft grey light, the city stretching endlessly below like a wound that would never close. Jungkook had been quiet for too long, eyes fixed on the skyline, shoulders heavy beneath a hoodie that still smelled faintly like last night's sweat and regret. I don't expect anything from you, he finally said, voice low. I came because I couldn't pretend anymore, not to them, not to myself. Jimin scoffed, pushing away from the ledge. You're unbelievable. You think one public confession erases everything. You think just because you said my name, I'm supposed to fall back into you like we're a fucking chorus that never ended. I don't want erasure, I want honesty, Jungkook struggled for the words, his fists clenching at his sides. I want you to know I see it now, everything I failed to see before. What exactly do you think you see? Jimin snapped, his voice rising. The sleepless nights I spent wondering if I ever meant anything to you, the rehearsals where you wouldn't even look at me, the fucking humiliation of watching you perform our memories in front of millions like they were yours alone. I hated myself for that, Jungkook muttered, his jaw tightening. No, Jimin spat, stepping closer. You hated being caught, you hated the guilt, not the decision. Jungkook looked at him then, really looked, at the dark circles under his eyes, the way his lip curled with anger but his eyes shimmered with something deeper, something wounded. I hated losing you, he said quietly, but I thought I could still keep the parts of you that lived in the music. I was wrong. Jimin laughed, bitter and breathless. You kept the parts of me that served your story, the soft moments, the pain, the drama, but none of the truth, none of the anger, none of the fight it took to love you. I didn't know how to tell that version, Jungkook admitted. Because that version makes you the villain, Jimin said. They stood there for a long moment, nothing but the wind whistling past the building. Then Jimin turned away, heading for the stairs. Jungkook's voice stopped him. Do you remember that night in Busan? Jimin froze. We just finished that tiny show, the one where the mic cut out and you sang a cappella, and the whole crowd went dead silent because you were so damn raw they didn't know how to breathe. Jimin didn't answer. We went to the beach after, just us. You were wearing that stupid beanie with the pom-pom and I told you looked like a sea urchin. Jimin's shoulders tensed. You looked at me, Jungkook said softly, and asked, will you still love me when this all gets ugly? And I said yes, especially then. Jimin turned around slowly, his eyes darker than the sky. And you broke that promise, he whispered. I know, Jungkook said, but I meant it, I still mean it, even if I'm the ugliest thing in your life right now. You are, Jimin said, his voice shaking. You are the ugliest, most beautiful part of it, and I don't know how to erase you. I don't want to be erased. Then what do you want? Jungkook swallowed hard. I want to try again, not with the lies, not with the cameras, just us, if you'll let me. Jimin stared at him, eyes narrowing, breath coming hard and uneven. You say that now, but what happens when they come for me? When the brands pull out? When the fans write hate letters because I'm the one who corrupted you? Then I'll burn with you, Jungkook said without hesitation. Every fucking bridge, every contract, every last ounce of fake admiration, I'll light the match myself. Jimin blinked, stunned into silence. You think I'm still scared, Jungkook continued. But I'm not anymore, not of them, not of you, only of waking up and realizing I let you walk away a second time. Jimin's lip trembled. He looked down at his hands like he wasn't sure what they were supposed to do, fight or forgive. Then softly he asked, do you know what I did the night you debuted solo? Jungkook shook his head. I stood outside the arena. I wasn't invited. I didn't want to go in, but I wanted to hear it just once. I listened to the crowd screaming for you, to them singing our melody back to you, and I realized I wasn't yours anymore. I belonged to a version of you that didn't exist. Jungkook's heart fractured all over again. I cried in the car, Jimin continued, for 2 hours, then I went home and wrote a song I never showed anyone. Jungkook stepped closer, voice barely a whisper. Can I hear it? Jimin looked up at him, eyes shining with something between anger and hope. Not yet, he said, maybe not ever. But maybe, Jungkook asked. Maybe, Jimin said. And that was more than Jungkook deserved, more than he expected. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't a promise. But it was a crack in the armor, a single breath in the suffocating silence. As the sun finally broke over the horizon, casting gold across the rooftop, Jungkook stood beside him, not as an idol, not as a headline, but as the boy who had once made a vow on a beach in Busan. And maybe, just maybe, there was still a future where he could make that vow mean something again. The studio was dim, lit only by the soft orange glow of a desk lamp and the steady blinking of recording equipment left running from a session that had ended hours ago. Jimin stood in front of the soundboard, arms folded, watching the playback of his own voice crack over a lyric he hadn't meant to write. His song, the one he swore he'd never show anyone. And now Jungkook was behind him, listening to every word like it was the first breath he'd taken in weeks. Jimin didn't look at him. He couldn't, not while that verse was still ringing through the speakers. You promised me first, but I was always the last verse you sang when no one else was listening. Jungkook stood frozen, every syllable piercing through his ribs. He didn't speak, not until the track faded into silence and the only sound in the room was Jimin's shallow breathing. You wrote that for me, Jungkook's voice was barely a whisper. I wrote it because of you, Jimin said, still not turning. I wrote it when I hated you, when I missed you, when I couldn't tell which feeling was louder. Jungkook took a step forward. Then why are you letting me hear it now? Because you broke something in me, Jimin said slowly, finally facing him, and I need to know if you even understand what you did. Their eyes locked across the dim studio. Jungkook didn't flinch. I do. No, you don't, Jimin snapped. You understand guilt, you understand damage control, but you don't understand what it means to carry someone's trust and drop it the second the spotlight hits. I've carried that trust every day since I lost it, Jungkook said, voice rising. Do you think I don't wake up every damn morning wondering if I deserve to sing another word? Then don't, Jimin shouted. Don't sing about me, don't write me into verses like I'm a metaphor. I'm not your heartbreak aesthetic, I'm not your tragic plot twist. I know you're not, Jungkook said, stepping closer. You were my truth, the only real thing I had when everything else felt fake, and I buried it because I thought that was the only way to keep it safe. Safe from who? Jimin asked, eyes narrowed. Your fans, the industry, or yourself? Jungkook was silent. Jimin walked toward him, every step slow, controlled, dangerous. You think I didn't know what they were saying behind our backs? The rumors, the questions, the looks, I heard it all. But I stayed, I fought for us while you folded. You think I didn't fight? Jungkook's voice cracked. I bled for you, in silence, alone. I let them own every piece of me but you because I thought if I kept that part hidden maybe it would survive. Jimin was breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. You buried me. I loved you, Jungkook said, voice trembling. I loved you so much I made you my secret because I thought that was the only way I'd never lose you. And I was wrong. I lost you anyway. Silence, sharp, final. And then Jimin did something Jungkook didn't expect. He laughed. It wasn't a joyful sound. It was bitter, hollow, the kind of laugh you let out when the weight of everything you've endured finally cracks your ribs. You always had a way of making betrayal sound romantic, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook stepped forward, then let me rewrite it. Jimin looked up, eyes fierce. We're not a song, Jungkook. There's no chorus to come back to, no bridge that smooths the pain. I don't want to smooth it, Jungkook said. I want to live in it with you if you'll let me. You want me to let you? Jimin whispered. After you turned me into a secret, then a symbol, now a confession, you used my silence. You wore it like armor and then blamed the world for not seeing me. I was scared, Jungkook admitted, of what they'd do, of what I'd lose. They already took everything, Jimin snapped. They took us. Jungkook's face twisted. Then let's take it back. You think that's how this works? Jimin's voice broke. You think you get to walk back in and pick up where you left off, like we're just another comeback. Jungkook took one last step. They were face to face now. I think we're more than what they let us be, he said. I think we were the secret they couldn't own, and I think we deserve to be loud now. Jimin stared at him, breathing unevenly, and for a long moment neither of them moved. Then, softly, Jimin said, You don't even know what I've been through. You don't know what they said to me after your confession. The threats, the backlash, the labels who backed out of my project, the fans who told me to kill myself. Jungkook's face went white. What? You broke the silence, Jimin whispered, but you didn't stay to clean up the blood. Jungkook swallowed hard, his voice a trembling rasp. I didn't know. You didn't ask. I'm asking now. Jimin's voice dropped to a whisper. It's too late to be the hero, Jungkook. Jungkook nodded, eyes full of pain. Then let me be the villain who fights to make it right. And just like that, the wall cracked. Jimin turned away, covering his mouth, his shoulders shaking. Jungkook didn't touch him, he didn't speak, he waited. After a long breaking moment, Jimin spoke again, so quietly it was almost a breath. I want to believe you. Then believe me. I'm scared, Jimin said, that this time I'll say yes and you'll still leave, that this is just another performance. Jungkook's voice cracked. There's no audience left for this, just us. Jimin turned slowly, his eyes raw and wet and burning. And this time when Jungkook reached for him, Jimin didn't pull away. They stood there in the dim light of the studio that once held only echoes, wrapped in something too broken to be perfect but too strong to be forgotten. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something real. And finally, they let the silence speak the truth neither had been brave enough to sing. They were still here. Still standing, still choosing each other, even through the wreckage. The hotel room was dim, silent but tense, the kind of silence that doesn't soothe but charges the air like the last breath before a thunderstorm. Jimin stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the rain streak down the glass like veins. Jungkook sat on the edge of the unmade bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it owed him answers he'd never asked for. They hadn't spoken since the studio. Not really, a few scattered words, a breath here, a look there, but nothing that would touch the weight of what needed to be said. And now there was no one left to interrupt them. Jimin broke the silence first, voice flat. They pulled my solo project. Jungkook looked up slowly, his stomach dropping. What? My label. Jimin turned to face him, face unreadable. After the confession, after the headlines, after the fans started threatening sponsors, they said I'd become divisive. Jungkook stood quickly. I'll talk to them. Don't, Jimin cut him off. You don't get to play savior now. I wasn't trying to. You were, Jimin's voice rose. You always do this. You set the fire then act surprised when I'm the one burned. That's not fair. Isn't it? Jungkook clenched his fists. I didn't ask them to pull your music. But you knew this would happen, Jimin snapped. You knew they'd come for me, and you went ahead anyway, like your redemption was more important than my survival. I didn't think they'd actually, Jungkook started, but Jimin's laughter cut through him. Because you're protected, Jimin said. You're golden. Even when you fall they build a monument around your wreckage. Me, I'm disposable, I always was. You're not disposable to me. But I am to them, and you knew that. Jungkook stepped forward, eyes pleading. Then let me help fix this. You can't fix it, Jimin said. Not with interviews, not with Instagram apologies. This isn't a scandal to clean up. This is my career, my life. I'll walk away, Jungkook said suddenly. If that's what it takes, I'll leave the label, the endorsements, the tour. Jimin blinked, stunned into silence. I'll do it, Jungkook said again, slower this time. I'll burn it all down if it means you can finally breathe without choking on my name. Jimin stared at him, his chest heaving. Why now? Because I finally realized this was never just about us, Jungkook said. This was about the system that taught us to love each other in whispers and sell ourselves in lies, and I bought into it. I thought I could have both you and the safety of silence, but I was wrong. Jimin's voice cracked. You think walking away changes anything? I think staying and pretending nothing's broken is worse. The words hung there, heavy and sharp, a mirror held up to everything they'd tried to ignore. Jimin sank into the armchair, burying his face in his hands. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day wondering if your existence is bad for someone else's brand. Yes, I do, Jungkook said quietly this time. I just didn't admit it. I let them shape me into what they wanted, and I thought I could hold onto you behind the curtain. Jimin looked up, tears in his eyes. And you couldn't. No, Jungkook whispered, because love that hides will rot. There was a pause. Jimin whispered, then why did you keep coming back? Because, Jungkook said, every time I tried to move on, I found pieces of you in every lyric I wrote, every city I landed in, every crowd I smiled at. I left you in the shadows and you still haunted the light. Jimin closed his eyes, swallowing the ache in his throat. Jungkook crossed the room slowly. He knelt in front of him, not touching, just there. I can't ask you to forgive me, he said, but I can ask you to let me stand with you, this time publicly, without fear, without apology, no more hiding, no more rewrites. Jimin opened his eyes. If you stand with me now, you lose everything. Then maybe I'll finally be free. They stared at each other for what felt like eternity, and something shifted. Not forgiveness, but a beginning. A quiet understanding. A war truce drawn in exhausted honesty. Jimin stood slowly. Jungkook followed. They didn't embrace. There were no grand gestures. But when Jimin walked to the door, he paused. You're coming with me. Jungkook met his eyes. Wherever you go. Jimin nodded once. Good. They left the hotel together, through the front entrance, through the flash of cameras, through the noise. Hand in hand. Not as a statement. Not as a performance. But as two people who had already lost everything except the truth, and had finally chosen to live in it. Together.